guys, Lori here. I'm here today to do the end of the month reading wrap up for the month of July. I actually had an incredible reading month for the month of July, and that was largely because I was off, but also largely because I was on a road trip vacation and then reading rush happened. So I actually got a lot of I got a lot of reading done. And I'm actually super proud of myself. And I'm gonna go over like everything that I read, the challenges that I work, and how many pages I read for Reading Rush. So yeah, let's get into it. The first book that I finished reading after my last collection or my last wrap up was Keeper of the Lost Cities Exile by Shannon Messenger. This is the second book in the Keeper of the Lost Cities series, and I really love this book. I think I love this book more than the first book, and I'm loving how this book is expanding the world. The first book focused on a certain group of characters, and this book definitely changed the game and focused on a totally different, well, like a similar group of characters, but like a different group of them, because this cast is super big. I really love that. This book also deals with harder topics like grief and guilt and how that affects you in like a magical society. There was also a new magical creature that was incorporated into this novel that I really liked. And what I really loved about that relationship was it was so unique that normally when a character has like a magical creature that they're like connected to, the relationship is always so easy. That was not the case with this magical creature. Um, there was also a lot of adventuring that happened that Sophie had to go on, and I just really, really loved it. I thought it was such a well crafted novel. The Black Swan became really more prevalent. There was a lot of things going on, but it was just so jam packed, and I really loved it. I flew through this book. I loved the relationship that Sophie had with Alden in this book. I love the relationship she had with her foster parents. It was just really, really well done. And this book is just so rich in world building, and I literally cannot wait to read book 3, which I will definitely be reading next month. And then the last book I read before Reading Rush started was Going Off Script by Jen Wild. And this book was actually so cute. I love books that involve like television or TV sets, and this is definitely what that was. I was also a big fan of Teen Wolf, so a book about like werewolves was really, really fun. But it basically followed this girl named Bex, and she is going to move to Los Angeles to work as a script intern on her favorite werewolf TV show. She's an LGBTQ plus character, and she's hoping that the show will go into more of that direction. If you ever watched Teen Wolf and you were ever involved in that fandom, it's basically what happens in that show a lot. There was a lot of LGBT hopefuls, and we got a little bit of it, but not as much as people wanted. So she winds up trying to be a good person. She winds up writing a spec script for the show, and her boss winds up stealing it and saying that it's her own. And there's an LGBTQ romance in this, and it was just such a fun read. I just love the character dynamics. I love the movie set. I loved the realisticness of the drama that was happening on the set, especially in reference to diversity and LGBTQ relationships on screen. Really, really loved it. I wound up giving this like three and a half, 4 stars. It was such a fun summer read, and I really wound up reading it. And I would definitely read more by this author in the future. I know she has a few books out, but yeah, this was a book that I picked up at BookCon, and I'm so happy that I did. It was a perfect summer read, and if you're looking for books kind of like Geekerella, but much more like realistic, I would definitely check up this, and it has great like LGBTQ representation as well. The first book that I wound up finishing for Reading Rush was The Truth About Stacy, the Babysitter's Club graphic novel, which was designed, or the art was done by Raga Telgemeier. The first book that I wound up completing for Reading Rush. And it was 144 pages, and the challenge that it incorporated with was read one book in only one spot. And I also read this book in like one sitting. That wasn't the challenge, but that did happen. But this is the second book in the Babysitter's Club graphic novel series that is doing an adaptation, or like doing a graphic novel of all the Babysitter Club stories. And I really liked this one. I thought it was so well crafted. I really liked how this book had like two very different plot lines. One which was focused on the club, and then the other which was focusing on Stacy as her own person, and I really liked that. Stacy also deals with diabetes, so the book was tackling that. And I just loved the dynamics between the two clubs that formed. I really liked it, and I'm definitely going to request book 3 from my library, and hopefully I'll get to read that one soon. But I wound up giving this book like 3.5 stars as a read. And then the next book that I wound up reading was for Reading Rush was Granted by John David Anderson. This book also corresponds with the challenge read a book that has a non-human main character, which this book main character is a fairy. And I actually never read anything by John David Anderson, and this book actually had about 326 pages. But it basically follows this girl, or this little fairy named Ophelia Delia Fidgets. And in like the fairy world in this was so well crafted. I think the highlight of this book was definitely the fairy world. But she's a granter. She's someone that makes wishes come true. And she's sent on her first mission, and a lot of drama happens. She meets some new friends, and it's just so fascinating. The world building was the highlight. I love being inside her head. I loved having her see our world through her eyes because it was so innocent and so pure. And it was just great. I really love this book. Stand out for world building. I gave this book 4 stars, and I would definitely read more by this author in the future. Such a cute book. And then the next book that I wound up reading for Reading Rush was The Flash, Hocus Pocus, by Barry Lyga. This was a book that actually did 2 challenges because I didn't get around to finishing Sadie. I did start it. So this is a book that's based on an adaptation. I know the prompt says a movie adaptation, but I just did not get around to reading The Hate That You Give, which was on my list at some point. So I did wind up picking up The Flash, and I also did really mean to read this book last year, so it knocks out 2 challenges. But I actually was really impressed with this book. I really love the TV show. This is actually set, I think, after season 2. And stuff in season 3 didn't actually happen, so I actually liked it. But it just follows him, and he's trying to defeat a villain named Hocus Pocus. And I just really liked it. It read like a TV show. I really love the dynamics between him and Team Flash. I wish Iris was in it a little bit more, but I know that there's more subsequent books, which I have a feeling will kind of be like a TV show. Every book will have a minor villain, and then maybe there'll be a big villain, which is maybe what Hocus Pocus will be for this whole series. But I actually really wound up enjoying it, and I wound up giving it 4 stars. I definitely want to check out this series, but I also want to read the other one, which is Supergirl, and I have book 1 on my shelf. And I did get this book signed, so I probably might wind up keeping this book. But overall, it was really, really fun and a really, really fast-paced read. This book also has really, really large print as well. And then the next thing that I wound up reading or listening to was The Start of Me and You by Emery Lord. The first audiobook that I wound up finishing this month, and I actually really enjoyed this book. I've actually really enjoyed a lot of Emery Lord's books. I still have one outstanding that I haven't read quite yet, but this book was just so well done. I really felt invested in Paige and her story from page 1. Basically follows this girl named Paige, and she's kind of in a little bit of a holding pattern in her life. About a year ago, her boyfriend died in an accident, and she's kind of still dealing with the grief of that. She's going in. So that happened I think the end of her sophomore year. She's in her junior year. And she's kind of trying to challenge herself and kind of step out of her comfort zone a little bit. So she winds up joining some new teams, having a list of things that she wants to accomplish. I love books about lists. They're just so fun. And she winds up going on a few adventures. There's some new romantic interests, but also a lot of new friendship interests. And I just really, really like this book. I thought it was so well done. I love how this book balanced grief, self-discovery, and romance and friendships all in one book. I really cannot wait to read the sequel to this because it's on my shelf and I cannot wait to dive into it. But I wound up giving this 5 stars. This was also my first 5-star read of the readathon, and also it was a book that had 5 words in the title. But I really thoroughly enjoyed this audiobook and cannot wait to read the sequel, hopefully soon. I wound up picking up, and I actually wound up finishing this on the way down to Virginia, was The Wicked Deep by Shara Anjar. Oh, also, let me just tell you, The Start of Me and You had 376 pages, and this book had about 308 pages. But this book fulfilled the challenge of read an author's first book, and this is Shara Anjar's first book. This book actually so surprised me. I knew nothing. I knew it had to do with witches and witchcraft going in, but I really knew nothing else about this novel going into it. Really, really surprised me. But it basically follows this girl named Penny, and she lives in a town where, 100 years ago, 3 witches came to town and kind of turned this town on its head. And they actually wound up drowning these girls as witches. And it is the saying that every year these witches' souls come back and they wind up possessing these 3 girls, and then they wind up killing some of the boys from the town. So you follow this girl named Penny who's lived in this town her whole life. And you follow the summer through her eyes. And there's a new boy named Bo that comes to town who has some secrets of his own. And this book was literally so surprising. Shara just created such a complicated mystery that really had me like thinking like, what is going on in this book? I was writing down with my cousin and I was like, oh my god, what is going on? I was so shocked, and the surprises just kept coming, and by the end of the book I was like, oh my god, what just happened? This book was so well done. This is actually a book I would really consider re-listening to at some point, because once you know what happens, it's kind of interesting to go back. But I really love this book. I wound up giving it 3.75 stars. 4.75 stars. I really enjoyed it. Thought the mystery was so well. Thought the setting was so good. I liked the romance as well. And I loved how this book was structured. It was like most of the story was told through like Penny's eyes, but then you had parts that told the story about the sisters, which I really liked. Really loved it. Cannot wait to read Winterwood, that I'm hopefully going to read very, very soon. But this was such a great witch themed thriller, but I would definitely call this more of like a mystery. So, but yeah, I really enjoyed it when I'm giving it 3.75 stars. After I finished this, I wound up picking up, Memento by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. This is not actually on Goodreads because it was a pre-order incentive, and I didn't wind up finishing Aurora Rising. So this is technically the book that has purple on the cover. And this had 82 pages. I like this. I didn't love it. It was set prequel to Illuminae, about basically what led to the start of Illuminae. I liked it. I really wish it would follow the characters that I loved, because I loved all the characters from the Illuminae files. But that's okay. I liked it. I liked it. I didn't hate it. I enjoyed it. It just wasn't my favorite. So I wound up giving this 3 stars. So this technically was the book that I finished for the readathon that had purple on the cover. It was supposed to be Aurora Rising. I just did not get that. I just didn't get to finish it. Because I went to Virginia with my cousin, and we were only supposed to stay till Monday, but we wound up staying till Wednesday. So, the first half of the weekend was spent like being a nice maid of honor and doing maid of honor things. Second half of the vacation, I got a lot of reading done, and that's when I started reading Aurora Rising. So I actually finished Aurora Rising on Monday, but oh my god, this book is totally my new favorite. I really, really love this book. I love Amy and Jay's writing. I'm also a big fan of Stranger Things, and I agree. If you like Stranger Things and you are kind of feeling like, oh, I want more Stranger Things in my life, definitely pick up this book, especially if you like the character of Eleven. But it basically follows this guy named Ty, and he goes to an academy, and he's going to get his own squad. He's so excited. And then draft day happens, and the night before draft day, he winds up going on a pleasure ride, and he winds up finding a situation that involving this young lady that he needs to save her. So he winds up missing the draft, and he winds up getting stuck with a crew of people that no one wants. And if you read the book, it's just funny. Like, there's 6 people, no one wants them for various reasons. And then this girl is a girl basically out of time. And they wind up going on a few adventures together. But oh my god, these characters, oh, I love them. They were adorable. I love books about twin dynamics, ties a twin. I love books about a ragtag group of characters that become like a crew. I loved it. I just loved all the point of views. All the point of views were so captivating. Definitely a 5-star read. Massive cliffhanger. Just warning you. It is also not written like Illuminae, which I thought I would have a little bit of a problem with because I love that format so much. This is just like literally a novel, but they do have. I'm gonna see if I can find one for you guys so I could show you. But they do have parts about that come from Magellan, and you learn who Magellan is in the book. So they do have parts like that that kind of expand the world. I thought that all the point of views in this novel were so compelling and really expanded my understanding of the world. Really loved it. Gave it 5 stars. Cannot wait for book 2 to come out. But yeah, Amy and Jay, you've done it again. I really, really love this book. Definitely a 5-star read for me. And then after I wound up finishing Aurora Rising, I wound up, surprisingly, I just threw this in my bag because I got it a couple of weeks ago from Book Outlet, and I wound up picking up Legendary by Stephanie Garber. I liked Caraval when it first came out. I didn't love Caraval. So I've had no interest in picking up this book, but let me tell you, I was thoroughly, thoroughly impressed with this book. I loved it so much, and I had not reread Caraval, but boy, did this book blow my mind. I read this in like a day when I was on the car ride back. I just finished it this morning. This book was so well done. It basically follows Tella, and I'm not going to spoil Caraval, but basically the first book has a Caraval. This book has a Caraval. It's not that big of a shock, but the Caraval's very different. Tella is definitely the main character. You do see Dante. You do see Scarlet and Julian in this book. There is a new character that you meet. I felt like she respected what happened in Caraval, but also expanded this world like 1,000 times more, made it so compelling. The relationship between Tella and her potential romances, because there were quite a few, I'll be honest, was really captivating. This book so screamed Alice in Wonderland to me, so I don't know if that was like the premise, but it just screamed it. It was just such a well-crafted novel. I like flew through it. I remember just wanting to know what happens. I was so invested in Tella. I really just was there was so many mysteries in this book. It was so well done. I really thoroughly enjoyed this book. But yeah, so when I'm giving this book 5 stars, I definitely have to read Finale now. Like, I do not know what I was doing with my life, but Finale is definitely on my list to read, hopefully before soon at some point this year, because I'm getting it from the library. But really, really enjoyed this book. Was super impressed. Gave it 5 stars. And then the last book that I wound up finishing for the month of July, was Empire of Storms by Sarah J. Maas. This is the 4th book in the series. This is also, if my understanding is correct, this is the last book that includes all the characters before Kingdom of Ash, which makes sense once you read the end of the book. So I really like this book. I think that it is a super complicated world and a super complicated dynamics. There's a lot of characters. There's a lot of moving pieces. Sometimes I get a little bit confused, I'll be very honest, but I really do love it. I love the end. I'm so excited to read Tower of Dawn. I'm going to start that tomorrow. But yeah, so that's all the stuff that I wound up finishing in the second half of July. I had a really good reading month. Some of the highlight books in this are definitely Aurora Rising and Legendary. Those 2 books really blew my mind. Definitely are going to be in contention to make my top books of the year. So I'm going to do my August TBR very, very soon, so keep a nose out. Let me know in the comments what books you were super excited about that you read about, or that you read in July, and I'll talk to you guys later for another update. Bye.